How would I describe my personal style? I'm not shy about, showing a little skin, being a little slutty on the carpet, which is, part of my vibe for sure. It's definitely at least a little bit left of center. Hey, I'm Joel Kim Booster, and Esquire has asked me to explain some things. So let's dive in, shall we? If you were a multi-billionaire like Novak, what's the most ridiculous thing you would waste money on? I guess the thing that I waste the most money on now as a very much not multi-billionaire is clothes. I just buy a shit ton of clothes constantly and books that I'll never read. I can't leave a bookstore without leaving without at least 5 books. My backlog is pretty deep right now. Are people still talking about Sally Rooney? I am, because I haven't finished Normal People yet, so give me a minute. Who breaks first in scene, you or Maya? That is tough. I mean, it's definitely me. Every scene with her is a masterclass in comedy. You truly cannot see any of her choices coming, and that will always usually get me. I've gotten her a couple times too, but she's a vet, so she's, I think, used to it by now, so it's a little bit harder. Has she ever made you lose it while filming? When she shot the Hot Ones scene from season 1, we all went and watched the monitor of Maya just doing the Hot Ones scene for however many hours that took, because it was such a show. I could have watched it for hours if I needed to, because it was so funny, and she made us all just die a little bit on that day. How would I describe my personal style? It's different in real life to what I bring to an event or a carpet or something like that. The events and the carpets, it's a collaboration with Chris Horan and Mark Monroe, and they both are really great at pushing me a little bit further outside of my comfort zone, which is great for me. I'm not shy about, showing a little skin, being a little slutty on the carpet, which is part of my vibe for sure. But in life, I'm in streetwear all the time. I grew up thrifting, and now that is sort of evolved into me just going, vintage shopping, and still thrifting. I'm at the Goodwill, I'm at the Crossroads. It's definitely, eclectic and comfortable and at least a little bit left of center. Of all the TV characters you've created, who would you most like to be on Fire Island with? That's a tough one, because so many of them have been pretty obnoxious, I would say. Charles Liu is closeted bi. That's a toxic energy to have in the house, especially in a place like Fire Island. Personal trainer Dane Kang, he might be the pick, honestly. I think he would be pretty chill, probably stay back at the house a lot, very much into games, cooking family dinner, and you need somebody like that in the house for sure. Explain this tweet. Are you still triggered by jeans? This was such a formative moment in my life, to be humiliated by a Barnes & Noble manager like that. Nobody in my house, my mom, my dad, nobody said, hey buddy, you might want to put on some slacks for this interview. It was my thing, it was this was my responsibility, I'm gonna do it. And showing up and then finding out I did it completely wrong was very much oh, you can't trust anybody. And it changed me that day, honestly. But yeah, Barnes & Noble, I don't know, karma, I guess. Do you remember the first time you tried stand-up? What joke won? I do remember the first time that I did stand-up. It was in Chicago. I was doing theater at the time, and my theater company was putting on this variety show, and they needed slots filled, and they're like, there's 5 minutes here, will you just do something? And as a last-minute idea, I was like, I guess I could try stand-up. And I was young enough to believe that I was good at everything at the time, which, a little delusion helps, especially at the start. So I did stand up at this variety show, and I actually crushed, which is, I think, what kept me going for a long time in stand up, because that one set would be followed by many bombs. But I think doing well that night really gave me the itch. I think it really got me addicted to that feeling really quick. And then what joke won? The only joke that I can remember, Asian guys were Chihuahuas, that everybody wanted them around and thought they were cute and fun, but nobody wants to f*** a Chihuahua. And it really won the crowd over. What motivates you to do stand-up? The number one thing is that it is the one outlet that I have right now that is completely unfiltered, just 100% my POV. I'm not getting network notes. I'm not getting studio notes about the jokes. It is, for better or for worse, all straight from the vine of my sick little brain. And it's freeing in that way because I get to do all the things that I love to do, perform and write, and just not be held back by anybody's, idea of what is, appropriate or a good representation or timely or even funny. What did your workout look like to prepare for Fire Island? What is your workout regimen now? Honestly, it hasn't really changed. I have an amazing trainer. His name is Tyler Manzo, ally to the community. It's just like regular gym shit. It's very much focused on like athleticism. It's not necessarily about like, heavy bodybuilding stuff, but I just want to look fit and feel healthy, and that's sort of my goal. I did go a little crazy before Fire Island, and it's difficult to watch that movie sometimes because I'm not like super impressed or happy with where I was when I filmed that movie. But like, everybody was like, you should do a cycle of steroids before you do it because it's going to be forever, like that body is going to be forever. And I ultimately am glad that I didn't do that just for the sake of, listen, I have bad skin already. I don't need that. I don't have the ball real estate to give up to steroids either. So I think it is, for me, I've gotten to a place where I'm happy with the way I look and I'm trying not to with that. This feels like a trick question because most of my costumes in Fire Island were Speedos. So it's like, take your pick of which of those, I guess. I really do remember really liking my very first costume, which is like an R-Swader, like cut off t-shirt and just some like black jean shorts, I think. And I loved that because that is who I am. That's what I dress as normally. It made me sort of feel at ease immediately in the character because I was like, oh, right, he's just like a Brooklyn goblin like I was for so many years. And it brought me back home. It brought me back to a place that I remembered and could access really easily. So I love that costume. Explain this eating adventure. This was eye-opening for me. I definitely came in out of the three of us and had the least amount of food knowledge. I mean, my palate is just wildly underdeveloped compared to the two of them. It was nice. It was like a crash course. I felt like I got a little master's degree in food in LA specifically. We went to amazing, iconic spots like Meals by Ghanay, which is this incredible Ethiopian restaurant in LA that everyone has to check out. Yangban, which has the best fried chicken I've ever had in my entire life in LA or otherwise. Every place we went to really opened my eyes to how much more than just like cooking food is. And I started cooking because of this show. During the strike, I realized I had no hobbies other than media consumption. So I decided to start cooking, and it's changed, even further the way I look at food. What's the biggest challenge to writing for TV versus stand-up? It's completely separate parts of my brain that I use when I am writing for a television or a script or writing for stand-up. I'm not one of these stand-up comics who goes to a cafe and like gets out my notebook and like writes and like sits and stares out the window and then goes and says whatever they wrote down verbatim. And I do so much of my writing on stage. Like so much of it is about the interactions that I have with the audience. Like right now I'm talking about guys who lie about being 5'9". What's going on with the height 5'9"? Because somebody's lying, we can't all be 5'9", and it's so much about like talking to guys who are lying about being 5'9" and figuring out, together where those punchlines are, and then I go away and I listen to it and I write the punchlines and the setups and things like that I've found after, many nights of doing that. Whereas when I'm writing a script, I never start writing until I have an ending. There's just so much more research and collaboration too. Like I'm passing it back and forth between friends who are reading it. And yeah, it's just a much more anal sort of process than stand-up is. That's very loose. Ooh, anal and loose in the same sentence. You don't love to hear it. What can you tell us about Again, Again, Again? I can tell you that it is a wedding comedy and is very much ripped from the headlines of everything that I put my own boyfriend through when I don't take care of myself mentally. So in many ways, it's sort of a love letter to him. It's also just an opportunity for me to finally branch out and write straight characters, which was really difficult for me, but I figured it out. Had some help. Okay, you have heard a lot of what I've had to say today. Thank you for watching, and thank you for Esquire for asking these really invasive questions.